Hello and welcome to today's podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Jordan, joining us all the way from Boston. He is a healer, teacher, and a guide. He is a senior guide, international instructor, Kabbalah instructor, and has been helping people for over 20 years. Welcome, Jordan.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited for this podcast. This is near and dear to my heart, and yeah, very excited.
Today we'll be covering super important and exciting subjects, how powerful progression helping us become better parent. So would you be happy to share a little bit your journey in a nutshell? How did you find the school and how that helped you become a better parent?
Yeah. So great questions. I found the school in 2004 through kind of a series of synchronicities, as I think many people do. I was really, I had a professional spiritual healing practice at that time that I had recently opened. And it was renting space at a yoga studio, starting to see clients, working a full-time job also at the same time as starting my spiritual healing practice. And, you know, as I started working with clients using other spiritual tools that I learned prior to the mystery school, I've been on a spiritual path since it's 1991 when I was 11 years old. And as I started working with these clients in a professional context, my intuition just kept telling me there was more that I was supposed to be doing with people beyond the things I had studied, shamanic healing and Reiki and working with angels and psychic guidance and past life readings and all sorts of stuff that I was doing. My inner guidance, my intuition, and my spirit guides were like, there's more that you are supposed to do with people. And I kept asking and praying, and what is it? Please God, show me how I'm supposed to be of service. And I kept being shown this mystery school. And I was very skeptical for about a year. I don't really need that. I've done a lot of other spiritual things. I've done a lot of other studies. I've done other initiations. I've studied with shamans from all over the world and healers and, studied religions and Zen Buddhism and esoteric Christianity and, mystical Sufi practices and, lots of Hindu and yogic practices. And yet I just kept being drawn back. Like, every time I would really pray about it and really ask, something would show me the modern mystery school. So finally I said yes. About a year later, I went and got life activated and initiated and galactic activated. And I did Kabbalah the next year after that in 2006. And it just really, life expanded and took off. And my kids are young now. My kids were only born in 2022, 2023. So this was, decades earlier. And those first few years in the mystery school, I had always known that I wanted to have specifically two kids since I was 11. I've been having dreams about, I'm a weirdo, right? Like, you interview me, you're going to get weird stuff. Like, most people are like, oh yeah, I knew I was going to have two kids when I was 11. Oh yeah, I've been talking to God since I had a Kundalini awakening at 16. Strange stuff, right? I did not live a normal life. I think I was in college one time, my freshman year, and so this friend of mine, hilarious human being. I have no idea. We haven't been in touch since college, but I think we were in the woods together smoking weed in my freshman year of college. And he like turns to me after I was like talking to some ghosts and spirits in the woods and telling them to back off. And he was like, dude, you're a shaman. And I was like, yeah, yeah, totally. Let's go like get naked and run around in the waterfall. So that's part of my college experience, a little snapshot there. Um, so I'm a strange person in that sense. But knowing I always wanted to have two kids, by the time I got on my path as a mystery school initiate, many years later, so that was 1999, 2005, I got initiated and long since put drugs, alcohol, and all that stuff behind me. That was like a blip on the radar, the end of my teenage years. Um, there was just a knowing that was a goal. It came to me in dreams, meditations. You're going to have two kids. Okay. I was married. I was with someone at the time who I later got married to, then, 15 years later got divorced from. And, she and I did not have kids. And I'd kind of put all of it aside. It had been a big part of my path in the mystery school, especially through the Kabbalah system that we use. As a Kabbalah instructor, I've done Kabbalah way more than we even allow anyone to do Kabbalah now in the mystery school. Back then, more people could do Kabbalah for many more years. And then now we really only let people do Kabbalah maybe 3 or 4 times max. But I did it many, many times in a row. And it was always on my vision board. We work with sacred geometry and start structuring the mind. Kabbalah is about structuring the mind. So I was always structuring my mind with my goals, as we all should do as human beings. And when we are mystery school initiates, we can use the tools of Kabbalah along with the other tools on the path, both of the healer and the ritual master, to structure the mind and to be very clear about what we want. And I think for anyone who's interested in success in their life in any level, whether it's mystical success, spiritual relationship success, financial success, being healthy, to me, success is we should all feel like what we want, we can manifest. We can have that in our life. It shouldn't be like, well, I want this thing and then I never do it. Right. So for me, and this ties really right back into children, but also the whole path itself. Every time I used the system of Kabbalah and all the tools in the school to manifest, it always worked. Did it work the next day? No, it doesn't. That's not how manifestation works most of the time. We don't usually instantly snap our fingers and we have exactly what we want. We have to change our behavior. We have to change our mind. We have to change our attitude, our approach, our energy, our vibration, our frequency. And as I shifted through many years of walking the path, doing service, becoming a guide, becoming a ritual master, before that, of course, going to Healers Academy and Healers Academy 2 and learning to teach this stuff to others, which unfolded very naturally over time. Everything manifested in my life except this goal of children. And I kept asking and I kept asking. And there was a lot to that. There was a lot that I had to put into place in order to have children. So, this interview that you and I are doing right now is probably going to be different than someone who comes to the school and they already have children. And then the school leads them to realize, how they can become a better parent. For me, it was just becoming a parent, using tools to weave and create a life where I could be a parent. And there's so much to that. I always knew. So that's a thing. I think, if people know that they want to be a parent, that's really essential. Because I don't think people should be parents if they don't want it. That's like, if you don't have it in your heart to give to that child, everything, then why are you having the child? Why do you want to? Are you having the child just because it's going to stroke your ego? Are you having the child because your society or your parents told you were supposed to have the child? I mean, I believe in family in a huge way, and I've always wanted it. Great. So I knew that, and that wasn't really in question. So I think for some people, it's a question for them, like, do I want a child? Mm-hmm. And that's not something I think I can speak very easily to, because I've never had that experience. I've always known I wanted children. And then I kind of gave up on it after it not happening, because all the other goals that I'd set for myself using the mystery school tools and going through Kabbalah many, many times, all those goals are manifesting beautifully. Mm-hmm. I would do the work and they would happen. And then the children thing wasn't happening. So when I got divorced and then I got together with my wife, who I'm married to now, it became it's like that possibility opened up again. And then we had kids, and we have 2 and we're good. That's it. Because I was like, I don't really want 3. I don't really want 1, specifically 2. And some people have it in their heart to give more. Some people are like, I want 5. Mm. I was like, to me, that sounds like a nightmare. Mm. For me, like, it's not what my soul desires. So I think, part of the path is therefore learning to trust yourself and what you really want. And that is ground zero, step 1 for kids, for business, for your health and fitness, for your finances, for everything. Like, you got to know what you want. Mm. Path it cuts right to that heart for people of what they want. Mm. We talk in Empower Thyself in the first 2 days about your wants and your needs, and getting really clear, like, what do you want? What do you need? We only have 4 basic needs. We should ideally have 4 basic wants. and we should change those wants. And know thyself, what's written over the doorway metaphorically of all the ancient mystery schools. As you know thyself, a huge part of knowing thyself on a human level is, what do you want? What do you really want? What is in any given moment, the one thing that you're pursuing? Because the mystery school is not just a mystical, kind of, I'm sitting on top of the mountain and I have no wants and desires. This is a path that, let's reclaim the word occult, because the modern Christian movement, at least in the United States, has destroyed that word, has associated it with things that are evil. The word occult means hidden. And, the path of someone who is a true occultist is someone who the light of God is, they are working with the hidden light within their life. Now, the light is not obvious. Like, I have a ring light right here that lights up my face. Physical light is obvious. It comes from the sun, comes from electricity. We understand that. But there's a hidden spiritual light of God in everything. And an occultist is seeking to know that light that is clothed in flesh. I am the light, but I'm wearing this body. An occultist seeks to understand and to know and to develop true connection with the inner light. So that's what an occultist does. An occult means the hidden mystery, the hidden light. So as an occultist, this is our path in the mystery school. We're seeking to live a full human life and to know that light that is hidden inside of us and to bring that hidden light forward. And how does that light manifest? Well, it manifests as desire. I know the Buddhists would disagree. I did Buddhist practices for 10 years. I understand. But this is not a Buddhist path. I love Buddhist practices. I still do Zen Buddhist meditation sometimes. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Love it. And there's so many teachings. In no way here am I knocking Buddhism, because everything that Buddha was teaching was also totally incredible and essential. And if that's not something that a person understands, it's worthy of study. It's worthy of studying all the Buddha's teachings, his life, his examples. So not knocking Buddhism. But one of the misinterpretations in the last 500 or 1,000 years in Buddhist religion has been, you should have no desires, zero, want nothing, right? Or spiritual you are, the less you should desire. That's a distortion of the teachings. That's a distortion of real Buddhist teachings. It's a distortion of real spiritual teachings. No, as you mature spiritually, your desires will become clear. And as they become clear, anything that's clear and simple is powerful. If I have to write out 55 pages of the things that I want in my life, and I can't really boil it down, how do you focus on 55 pages of goals? Most of us can only focus on a few. Yeah. Most of us want kind of the same things. We all want to be healthy because, as many famous people have said, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Paraphrasing, right? So if you're not healthy, you can't enjoy anything at all. And if you are, so that's what we all want that. And if we don't have good relationships, we're going to be miserable. So we all want that. We want joy. We want connection. We don't want to live, fighting or being abused or abusing something. That's good relationships. So good health, good relationships. We all need to have a certain level of abundance in our finances, or we can't live life. I can't do this interview if I don't have a place to do it. If I don't have an internet connection, if I don't have food in my belly, I can't do this, right? So we need the basics taken care of. We need the abundance to then go do what we want to do. And we need connection to God. Like, we need these things in our life. So we have these kind of basic needs, and everyone has different permutations of that. And part of know thyself as a human being is to get clear on your wants and needs so that you can live that in your life. Without that, we don't know. Someone can't even step onto the path without having a goal. You can't just step onto the path of the mystery school and be like, I have no idea what I want in life. I'm just totally open. I guess if you did do that, then the universe would show you quickly what you do want, and maybe that's possible. But people come to the school and yes, they're open, but if you dig beneath the surface, everybody actually wants something. Even the Buddhists sitting on top of a mountain meditating and pretending they don't want something, they do want something. They want enlightenment. They want to know God. So that's a desire right there. What's driving you to give away all your possessions and go sit on top of the Himalayas for 10 years and meditate? You have a strong desire. Let's be honest. Right? That's a burning desire. Like, you have to really want that. That's not no desire. That's a strong desire.
Mm.
Let's not fake the funk. We all want something. You want kids? Be honest. You don't want kids? Be honest with it. And the mystery school path is the best path I know to get really, really clear on what you want. This will clean things up quickly. I mean, in weeks or months after initiation, people start to get really clear about what they want, and that will serve them for the rest of their life and beyond. So I took those wants through this parenting journey, and yeah, it, it, knowing that I want kids means that when things are hard as a parent, I know that I asked for it.
Mm.
I have responsibility. And that responsibility means that I have real power to do exactly what is needed in each moment as a parent. Because this didn't just fall into my lap. I didn't just accidentally have kids. I had kids because I knew it and I wanted it. I think that's really important. And if that's not where a person came from, it's okay. Because even if you are in your 40s or 50s or whatever, and your kids are, you know, young or teenagers, or even if they're out of the house, parenting is a lifelong journey. And so you can get really clear using these tools and start improving those relationships today. It doesn't have to be that, like for me, it was the seeds of all my relationships were, using the tools of the mystery school, knowing exactly what I want, planting those seeds into this physical world, into Mother Earth, into Malkuth, into this dimension, and seeing them manifest. But you can do that right now, even if you already have kids, and it will always improve the relationship. This
Mm.
will, I've never seen the mystery school stuff of any kind make relationships worse. It makes them better. Sometimes that leads to divorce, but it's better that you're divorced from a miserable relationship or simply from a relationship that doesn't work.
Mm.
You don't even have to be miserable. It's just be like, it's not the right relationship.
Mm.
Like in my case, I was like, I'm not miserable. This is just not the right relationship. This
Mm.
is, I love this person, but not the right relationship. So to know that about yourself, you can then modify your relationships. You're not married to the right person, get divorced. That's an improvement. Some people be like, well, that's not an improvement. I mean, I got divorced. How is that improving anything? Now I have all these financial problems, and I got to pay for lawyers, and I got to move, and what about the kids? And yeah, I get it. But at the end of the day, those kids will say thank you for doing the right thing. You're going to set an example for those kids that you did what was right.
Mm.
You knew thyself. You practiced what you preached. You were the living example of know thyself. You knew that it wasn't right. You took the actions. You left. That I call that an improved relationship. If you're not happy with someone and you get divorced and then you're happier, that's a better relationship. You love them from a distance because you weren't happy living with them. That's an improvement. Your kids see, well, this is hard and sad that mom and dad got divorced. I'm not advocating divorce as like a thing that people isn't do it only after you're really sure. Know thyself. Again, know thyself that you know what you want. But those parents of that divorce, the children, however old they are in that, whether they're out of the house and grown up or they're teenagers or they're younger, they'll see that mom and dad did the right thing for themselves. And then they'll know that not to settle for a relationship that doesn't work.
Mm.
So that's power. That self-knowledge gives us the responsibility, and that responsibility gives us the power to make changes in our lives. So we're going to have to make a lot of changes as a parent too. So we should really know thyself, really take responsibility. Um, so there's other aspects here that you want to chat about though. So I want to interrupt myself.
Yeah. Yes, I wanted to know how the power of progression helps us, to create to be that better parent. Like, would you have some example either yours from your own experience or your client? Because sometimes I have a clients who come and they feel very overwhelmed being a parent. Would you be able to speak to that, how the path can help us be a better parent and create a better relationship with our children?
I mean, I think a lot of things I was already just saying are a big piece of that, right? If you can know thyself and you know what you want to need, you're going to stand up for that. Like you said, for this client, I mean, I don't know her, but she probably isn't asserting her wants and needs,
Mm.
said. So when we don't assert our wants and needs, we're going to resent other people. Because if you don't stand up for what you want, you'll end up living what somebody else wants. That's just a principle in life, right?
Mm.
Any like personal development mentor or success coach in any system, mystery school or not, is going to tell you either you set your compass and you set your goals on what you really desire, or you're going to live somebody else's goals. Kind of like the statement that if you don't know what you want and you don't start your own business, then you're going to work for somebody else's dream. So a mom who doesn't know herself is going to not be as able to express what she really wants and needs. And if she doesn't express what she wants and needs, she's going to resent people around her.
Yeah.
And then that resentment can turn to hatred. On that spectrum, like it can absolutely turn to hatred and be like, I hate these people because I'm not expressing my wants and needs to them. Now, if it's a truly abusive situation, right, where she has expressed her wants, she does know herself, she has expressed her wants and needs, and her husband is like, screw you, I'm doing it my way, you can just stay, like, no. And she's being manipulated, controlled, or abused. That's different, right?
Yeah.
That's a difference. I'm not talking about abuse. I'm just talking about normal, decently healthy relationships with people who are non-abusive toward each other. And I'm not talking about the drama tornado of abuse. So if she can use these tools in the mystery school to know herself, is she an initiate?
Not just yet, no.
So I would guess within 3 to 6 months of her getting initiated, she's going to draw completely new boundaries in her life, probably with very little outside input and support, even from you as her guide. Let's say you drop the sword, you initiate her. Yeah. I mean, hopefully she comes to you and you can help, coach her in some way with it. But a lot of it just happens automatically. In my experience, what I've seen for people, they get initiated and within weeks or months, they are on a totally different relationship track. They've reset their relationships, usually within the course of a few months. For me, it was with the next day. Like I got initiated July 6th and 7th, 2005. July 8th, the next day, I went over to my parents' house. So I just turned 25. I went over to my parents' house and there was we had like an outdoor birthday party for me. And my mom went to go pour herself a glass of wine. And I had never really stood up for this before, but she was a serious alcoholic. And something in me was just like, no way. And I said to her, I was like, put the glass of wine down, don't drink it, or I'm leaving and you won't see me for my birthday. And she kind of like sputtered the glass of wine all over the table. Like, and what? Like completely in shock that I had stood up for what I wanted. And I was like, I love you as my mom, but I don't love who you are when you're drinking. So if you ever want to see me again, you're not going to drink around me. Are we clear? And she was like, okay. And she never drank around me for the rest of her life.
Wow.
The next day. Now, why did it take me 25 years to do that? I don't know. But all of a sudden, after initiation, I had the knowledge of myself, of what I wanted, and the strength and the energy and the resilience, that 10 times more light that we talk about, to simply stand up and say, no, as your child, an adult child, 25, as your child, we can debate if 25-year-olds are adults, but let's let the 25-year-olds think they're adults because they think I thought I was an adult. I don't know about that. But anyways, so I felt like an adult at 25. I was living on my own and all that stuff, right? And I had that power to say, I'm leaving, right? I'm not going to see you if you're drinking. And so something about initiation, it was very obvious to me that it instantly changed. And even though my parents didn't like that, they were so drawn to it that they ended up getting initiated once I became a guide 5 years later, 6 years ago. Because they were like, whatever Jordan's doing is working for him. They weren't stupid. They were smart people. And they could see, even though they had no interest in the stuff I was doing for themselves, really, they ended up getting initiated as soon as I was a guide. They were like my second class after I got certified. I did a class just for them. My mom, my dad, my sister, private class just for them. Because they all were like, this has completely changed Jordan's life. So that's another kind of cool side benefit of this. A lot of times mystery school kind of runs in the family. Someone will get initiated in a family and then their whole family will end up getting initiated because they see that person has changed dramatically and for the good. They're like, you're a way better person than you ever were before. You're way easier to be around. You're way more loving, way more connected. Of course, I want to do what you're doing. That's not everybody's family, but a lot of families, a lot of times. I run the mystery school with my sister in Boston. Like we have an office together. We run Mystery School Boston together. It's fantastic. That's not everybody's reality, but I see it more often than not that someone will get initiated, and then within a few years, usually by the time that person becomes a guide themselves, usually their family's getting initiated.
Mm. I can so connect to that. I've initiated my parents recently, and it was such a blessing to do that and
Yeah.
see them change, in a short period of time, to witness the change, and the smiles on their faces and more relaxations. That's wonderful. And you're sharing about your parents. That was actually one of my questions I wanted to kind of guide the conversation towards, like how we, as even grown-ups, as we do our healing, how that actually also affects the relationship with our parents and can improve it. And there you
Uh,
go. You know, you were
Not the
faster than me.
that question too for a short answer. My parents had a huge amount of issues, and they're both long dead now, actually. Because my dad was much older. My dad was like 50 when he had me. That was from his second marriage. So he passed away in 2018. My mom died in 2012. She absolutely killed herself with, cancer, with cigarettes, alcohol, multiple packs of cigarettes a day, many bottles of wine every night, screaming fights with my dad. My whole childhood and teenage years, all night, they would have 8 hour long drunken fights in the kitchen, from it's like starting before dinner until the wee hours of the morning. It was very intense. So, they got initiated. My mom got initiated right before she died. So, how did it change her?
Mm,
It's hard to say. Like, yeah, but my dad, it was very obvious because he lived for another 6 years after that. And he went, you know, he did second step initiation, know thyself. And then he went to a ritual master first step, actually, with the third order. And that was pretty amazing. They just, they were like, your dad needs to be initiated. And I was like, he's old and retired. And they were like, he can do it for free. Because he was over 80 years old. They were like, he's not going to use it in his life, but he needs it for after this life. And it will help your whole family, help your whole ancestry. And it did. And he very shortly after that, needed open heart surgery. Then he tried to kill himself and then, like broke his hips doing that. And then it was a mess. He was a mess. Like my parents were a mess. Like my childhood was a mess of abuse and disconnection and not understanding things. Being afraid all the time. That was my whole childhood. So, you know, it's a wonder I functioned as an adult at all. And it took it because I was always seeking healing because it took so much healing. Like
mm,
my life required so much healing just to function. Some people have wonderful jobs. I spent like most of my teenage years meditating because it's like people are like, oh, that's so cool. You were so spiritual. It's like, I'm pretty sure I had a spiritual awakening so I wouldn't die. Like, I couldn't, I did meditation 3 hours a day because otherwise, basically my life was a trauma response. Like my body would shake and I didn't know, um, how to even talk to people or be grounded. I didn't have very coherent thoughts. For like the end of my teenage years, I had to medicate myself with marijuana. Um, as diagnosed ADHD and took Ritalin in high school and early college and stuff like that. And so, just a lot of dysfunction, a huge dysfunction in my life personally and with my parents. So healing was kind of the only way to get out of that.
mm,
Many different types of spiritual healing and meditation, spiritual practice leading up to the mystery school. And then mystery school really is what allowed me to become an adult and function.
mm,
That's very strange, not most people's story. But the healing has always been the way of all of this. So in terms of my own parents, it definitely improved my relationship with my dad. Kind of hilariously, as he developed dementia, I was his guide, so I initiated him. And as your guide, we're always kind of hanging out with someone energetically once we initiate them. It's not in a creepy way, but we're kind of there, helping them, protecting them, guiding them spiritually. And so my older brother would always show up physically. He came to visit my dad in the nursing home like every week or two, and like bring him coffee and that sort of thing. And I was super busy, and I didn't get to visit my dad as much as I wanted. But every time I go see my dad, he thought that was there every morning. So in my dad's experience, I was hanging out with him all the time. So that was kind of nice to hang out with my dad a lot. And when he was, because he was kind of losing his connection to physical reality and moving into that, he took many years to transition and pass away. And for many of those years, he was mostly in a bed and a wheelchair, couldn't walk after 2015. So the last 3.5 years of his life, he was in a wheelchair in a bed. And you kind of, that'll make anyone lose their mind, I think.
Mm.
So during that time, we developed a great relationship. And when I would go to visit him, he would, tell stories and, uh, yeah. So it was a beautiful thing. And he's really still with me a lot. He comes into my dreams, especially because he was a ritual master. So he had a different sort of track in the afterlife. And yeah, he's still around. It's nice.
It's so beautiful to have that deep connection and that knowing that they there. Mm.
Yeah. My mom, not so much. My mom was much more the horrible person in the relationship. She was more the abuser.
Mm.
So she's not really available to talk to right now. Like she doesn't really come around, and she's kind of in a holding cell, so to speak, spiritually in the afterlife. It's
Mm.
not he's in spiritual timeout, so to speak, right now. So
Mm. Mm.
we'll see where she goes with that. That's her free will to do her own growth in the way she needs to. But no, I do prayers for her, but she's not accessible right now. So
Mm. Mm.
yeah.
You know,
So interview me again. I'm telling you, Kash, you're gonna get weird answers.
that I love it because that, as you're sharing this, it really makes me think, how when we have a tough childhood, we all get those inner child wounding,
Yeah.
and I think right now it's so popular to talk about inner child healing, but I feel sometimes people have a misconception what that means. It's not one of healing, it's a journey to know thyself. And would you say that anyone up there who begins to recognize that maybe there's something where they didn't manage to mature as a child, they didn't manage to experience, maybe they were living in, quite traumatic environment where they didn't feel safe, maybe didn't feel loved, and they maybe grew all those, conditioning like I'm not enough, I'm not smart, and that even though they may be 30, 40, 50, that still it's hunting them.
Mhm.
How important is the healing of an inner child to help us really to mature, even though we have a physical body of a grown up, how
Mhm.
mature are we, you know?
Right. Most people, the answer is extremely immature.
Mm.
Because every moment, this is bad news, every moment that you didn't feel the divine flow of yourself as a child is a trauma moment.
Mm.
I don't want to be too precious here. This is not about wokeism and safe spaces. That's not what I'm talking about. This is about the reality of what trauma is. Trauma is when you're not able to be yourself. And that can be as simple as your parents didn't, pick you up in your crib in time and you freaked out.
Mm.
Even if they were super loving parents, they just weren't around, like they didn't hear you screaming on the baby monitor for whatever reason. And a trauma was locked into your system. And a little piece of you freezes in each of those trauma moments. If it's a big trauma, a big piece of you could freeze. If you're raped by your parents, a big piece of you freezes. That's obviously way more traumatic and a huge breach of trust and pain and darkness that is nothing like, oh, I was left alone in my crib for too long to cry. Um, but I use those as extreme examples on either side. Something that we would think, is that even a trauma at all? Like you cried for an extra 5 minutes and you were scared. Sorry, like we're as parents, we were doing our best and we love you. And sorry, and that's a minor thing for most kids. And then a major thing like physical abuse or sexual abuse or something like that is a huge thing. And there's a huge spectrum of that abuse, or not even abuse, because there's a lot of trauma that doesn't come from abuse. A lot of trauma just comes because you're living life and you saw mom and dad fighting, or you saw them just interacting with each other, or you witnessed something in the world, or you saw something on TV that you weren't ready to see, or you know, your beloved grandmother died when you were 3 and like you didn't understand what happened to her, and that was always like a hole in your heart. So most of us have thousands and thousands of moments in our childhood, thousands and thousands that are frozen in time. And those frozen in time pieces, if you could sort of aggregate them and crystallize them into one avatar of a being, That's the wounded child.
Mm.
And it's composed of thousands of moments of traumatic experience where we don't have an emotional smooth flow of light from spirit and mind, emotions, body. Like things aren't working correctly in the spiritual dimensions inside of ourselves. And so we don't, it's too, usually the marker of that is emotional overwhelm. If you're feeling one emotion or maybe two emotions, most people, both adults and children, can handle feeling one or two emotions. But if you start having multiple layers of emotion happening at the same time, like you're hungry, you're scared, it's dark, maybe a parent is drinking, so there's strange energies and entities in the house because they're drinking and they're calling weird energies into their life through that. You start adding those things up. Is it just enough that you were probably left alone in your crib with really wonderful, loving parents for 5 minutes to give a trauma response? Probably not. But then you start adding other things. Okay, it's the nighttime, and maybe in your emanations, you were scared of the darkness, and now you're scared of the darkness in this life physically, and there's the alcohol going on in the house, and mom and dad aren't having a great relationship, or maybe dad lost his job, and like those things add up, and the baby, especially babies, but even children, are very sensitive and they feel all of that, and they know something's wrong, and they know they don't feel safe. And
Mm.
so as more of those emotional things pile up, the greater the chances there's going to be like a break in the emotional experience of that child, that they can't handle it, and a trauma moment is recorded. And those are all stored in time. They're all stored in that toroidal donut shaped matrix of time. And time is not just a line, it's this toroid. And as it's always flowing through us. The past, the present, and the future are always happening right now in us. And so things that happened when you were 3 years old, guess what? If they're not resolved, it's not a smooth flow. That the matrix of time is flowing through you over and over again. In every moment, it's being completely, as they say in the Vedic and Hindu traditions, like the universe is being created, maintained, and destroyed in every nanosecond. The whole matrix of time is being created, maintained, and destroyed in every nanosecond. So you think it happened in the past and you're over it. Unless you're over it, you're not over it. It's not done. That wounded child is still alive in you today and will be alive in you at the time of your death until you heal it. So
Mm.
much of what we do in the mystery school tradition is, you know, healing because of this, because we're not going to function as an adult in present time if we haven't resolved the past.
Mm.
Before I was talking about know thyself and what you want, that's more about the future, but you got to clean up the past also if you want to be a good parent. So hopefully we're not, throwing your audience into despair right now about the magnitude of work, but you're not going to be a grown up
I,
if you
I think
don't.
it's so important because sometimes, people have this misconception that, one session, like, oh, just do one session and my inner child will be healed. Like, hold on a minute, it's a journey, there wasn't one event which brought the pain and trauma and suffering. Let's uncover step by step. And I love the fact in mystery school tradition there is so many different tools that we can address that from many different angles.
Something that Founder Goodney said once many years ago, I don't remember what class it was in. He said, something that the Tibetan Buddhist monks do is they spend many hours in meditation for a long period of their life, like many years of their life, spending many hours a day in meditation, going back to all the moments when they didn't fully love themselves and loving themselves.
Oh,
And
mm,
that's inner child healing. You go
mm,
back, and it's not a wistful think about it kind of thing. It's literally you go back in time in your meditation to the moment when you did not feel love.
mm,
That's a trauma moment. If you didn't feel that divine flow from God of love, you were experiencing trauma. So we're not here to coddle ourselves or be precious about it. We're not here to be special snowflake flowers on the wall. We're here to be strong. And if
mm,
we are not loving ourselves fully, we are not strong.
yeah.
So, that's a practice that I took to heart at that time and have done, pretty much every week I do a meditation with my inner child where I go back in time with my higher self and I look at a moment that I don't even remember consciously, but I go back and I recall it and I spend an hour or two loving those parts, holding those wounds in love until they're resolved. I don't know how many more years of that I'll have to do. 5, 10 more years of that until
Mm,
I'm done.
mm,
Like most people's childhoods maybe weren't that traumatic, but that's what it's taken me to become a functional adult. I've been doing that since 2013.
mm,
It's not 2000, it's 12 years of that now.
mm.
So it's not a quick process. It's not a one-off healing session. I don't know how many weeks there have been since 2013, but a lot. It's 52 weeks in the year times 12 years. So whatever that comes out to exactly, right? We're looking at 600 meditations for my inner child and probably another 300 or 400 before I'm done.
Mm.
So most people don't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. I just needed to be strong. So I had to do that.
And would you say being a parent or spiritual mature that requires that inner warrior? I know we're slowly out of time, but just want
Yeah.
to.
I think everything requires being a warrior. I
Mm-hmm.
don't can stand up to the BS of daily life without being a warrior.
Mm-hmm.
I, your kids are going to give you all sorts of challenges and they're going to mirror your own challenges because when your child is the age that they are in this moment, that's a doorway into that moment of your life.
Mm-hmm.
When your daughter is 9 months old, it's like you being 9 months old. Like a door, like a window of the soul opens up as this because the soul goes through the dimensions of earth, and as the soul of your child is growing through the dimensions of earth, your soul is then too. It's like a window opens up to that time in your own life. So when my daughter is born, it's like when I was born. When my son was born, when I was born. What was happening at that time? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So just becoming a parent is going to re-trigger all of your own traumas. So if those aren't resolved, like you're not going to be a good parent. So you're going to have to be a warrior to say like, okay, this is my stuff, not my child's stuff. I'm going to own this. I'm going to get the healing work done. If I don't know how to do it on myself, I'm going to hire a guide or another teacher or a healer in the mystery school to help me, or I'm going to go,
Mm-hmm.
I need to go to get the healing so I can be, it's worth it because you're just going to perpetuate that on your child again and again and again. It's going to keep going. Do you want to break the cycle of that negativity affecting your family? I don't want to pass any of it on.
Yeah.
Of course, some of it's going to get passed on because none of us are perfect in this moment. Like we don't have the full knowledge of God in this moment. So, yeah, some of it's going to happen. But I want to reduce that as much as possible, give my children the absolute best potential foundation to stand on for their life. So, yeah, being a warrior is essential because that's about taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's about taking.
I think that's so often is missing in today, new age spirituality, where people think it meant to be easy peasy, but it requires that love, that true love, that dedication. Like, no, it ends with me, and I do what needs to be done to bring beauty and goodness to to my kids. But even if we choose not to have a kids, it's to my loved ones, to my family, to friends, to my work because we're talking mainly about the parent relationship, but life is all about relationships. So as we heal, everything around us also heals. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Jordan, for all the sharing. I know we over the time. Would you share just one tip? What would you recommend to someone, either a parent or someone who recognizes I want more from life?
Well, I think, it's really essential to have the ownership that it's what I actually want. If we don't know that it's what we actually want, then we're never going to go anywhere with it. So, getting as clear as a person can possibly get with, what do I really want? And that can be journaling, meditation, prayer, spiritual practice, you name it. Whatever it takes for you to get clear, own it.
Mm,
Without that, we're lost.
mm,
Without your true compass of desire, you don't even know how are you going to step onto the path. You have to know that you want God above the other things in your life to even get initiated.
mm,
And that takes a lot of souls a long time to get to that. This is not about going to church or synagogue or temple or mosque and saying, I love God, and then going home and you're done. This is about every moment of your life saying, I want to know what God's will actually is as it flows through me. That's there are tests and challenges just to get to that doorway of initiation. Most people never even get to that doorway of initiation. So yeah, know thyself,
mm.
and know thyself involves your desires. That just keeps coming up this whole interview. So yeah.
Know thyself. Beautiful. Jordan, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. Goodbye for now, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please like and share.